us strange Brits, amongst other things. But today he's going to give us a talk about China and its foreign policy, I believe, which is very kind of you at such a fascinating and, of course, challenging time for the world. It is on the record. This is not Chatham House rule. I think the ambassador is planning to talk for about 20 minutes, and then I will quiz him a little bit myself, and then I'm going to turn it over to the audience. And can I please remind you, or say to you, when we come to a close at 2 o'clock, please stay in your seats, and I will escort the ambassador out because he has to leave very promptly. So with that, no further ado, and over to my good friend, the ambassador. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim, for that kind introduction. It is your delight to join you again at the Chatham House. In my 10 years as the Chinese ambassador in UK, I've spoken at Chatham House several times. Every time I leave with new thoughts and new inspirations. Lord O'Neill asked me to talk about China's foreign policy and the international agenda for 2020. I'd like to start with how China is responding to COVID-19. This is not only because it is a topical issue which you must be following closely. More importantly, the way we are handling this virus, I think, could help people understand China's vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind. This is a basic concept underpinning China's foreign policy. It is also at the very center of Xi Jinping's thought on diplomacy. The outbreak of COVID-19 has been a major challenge to both China and the world in a very critical time, both in terms of the speed of its spread, the scope of its impact, and the difficulty to contain it. In combating this disease, the Chinese government has regarded the safety and health of the Chinese people as a top priority. Under the strong leadership of President Xi Jinping, all the Chinese people have been standing united. The most comprehensive, strict, and thorough measures have been adopted, deployed, and strengthened across the country. The whole nation has been mobilized to fight a people's war against the virus. WHO has spoken highly of China's efforts. In its words, China is setting a new standard for outbreak response. By taking these measures, China is living up to its responsibility of safeguarding the safety and health of the Chinese people. It is also contributing to global public health. We have done more than what we are asked to do by the WHO and under the international health regulations. We have made a huge sacrifice to slow down the spread of the epidemic to other parts of the world. China has also engaged in international cooperation in an open, transparent, and responsible manner in order to safeguard and improve global public health at this very critical moment. Dr. Tedros, Director General of WHO, has emphasized that China's measures are not only protecting its own people, but also protecting the people in the whole world, and that China has bought time for the rest of the world. Thanks to our persistent efforts, the prevention and control measures are showing positive effect. The cure rate has kept rising, and the mortality rate is maintained at a relatively low level. China has a strong leadership of the Communist Party of China. The advantage of socialism with the Chinese characteristics, unparalleled mobilization capability, and unprecedented comprehensive national strength, and the solidarity of the Chinese people. I'm confident that we will win this battle against the virus. A few days ago, President Xi Jinping called a meeting to map out coordinated plans for epidemic response, as well as social and economic development. While still focusing on containing the virus, China is also doing its best to minimize the economic impact so that China will continue to be a powerhouse for global growth. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 is posing a challenge for all, so is tackling it a responsibility for all. This battle against the virus once again shows that countries of the world are invariably associated with one another, sharing will and the woe. In other words, human society is a community with a shared future. This concept, proposed by President Xi Jinping, transcends the differences of social system, history, culture, and development stage. It embodies the common values of mankind. It reflects the trend of the times, and it answers the most important and urgent questions facing the world. That is, where should the world is heading, and where does the future of mankind lie? The ongoing battle against COVID-19 is a living proof of how much we all belong to this community with a shared future for mankind, and how urgently we all need to come together to build it. To safeguard the health and well-being of mankind, we need this spirit of community. Virus knows no borders. It is a common challenge facing all mankind. To safeguard global public health, countries must join hands and stand shoulder to shoulder. If we come to each other's aid in this time of difficulty and fight for our shared future, we can build an impregnable fortress and win the battle against the virus. To realize sustained stability and security in the world, we need this spirit of community. The world is undergoing profound changes unseen in a century, while the international landscape is undergoing profound and complex changes. Mankind has once again come to a crossroads where we must make choices and answer these questions. Do we want peace or war? Should we move forward or backward? Is it better to engage in dialogue or confrontation? Is it now a century for inclusiveness or estrangement? Our shared future lies in our own hands. The right choice is to pull in the same direction and address challenges together in a spirit of community with a shared future. If we choose wisely, we'll embrace the peaceful, safe, and beautiful world. Such a future is the common aspiration of all people in the world. To uphold fairness and justice in the world, we need this spirit of community. The world is entering the third decade of the 21st century. Yet, there are still some people who dream of resurrecting the Cold War, worship hegemony and power politics, clamor for unilateralism, and trample on other countries' sovereignty. Some politicians and media have attacked the development paths of other countries, fanned ideological confrontation, made such racist remarks as the sick man of Asia. Just like COVID-19, these man-made viruses are the common enemy of mankind. It is therefore the common responsibility of international community in the interest of the shared future to ensure that justice overcomes evil, truth conquers lies, and inclusiveness prevails over discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, amid the current situation and in face of the challenges in the world, what shall we do to build a community with a shared future for mankind? I think we should make the following 4 efforts. First, to safeguard international security, we should pull in the same direction instead of undercutting each other. COVID-19 is posing a threat to global public health security. China has worked with all countries in the world and made tremendous efforts and sacrifice to check the spread of the virus. In face of the various traditional and non-traditional challenges to security, major countries have upon them special responsibilities. They must resist the temptation to look inward or confront and undercut each other. They should take up their due responsibilities, make concrete efforts, and inject positive energy into global response to challenges. China advocates a new concept of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. We oppose the Cold War mentality and power politics. We stand ready to work with other countries to pursue peace and security. Having experienced untold sufferings of wars in modern times, China knows all too well that peace never comes easy. Therefore, China remains committed to the path of peaceful development and hopes that other countries will do the same. If peaceful development becomes a global consensus, harmonious coexistence and common development can be achieved for all. China has not started a single war or conflict over the past 70 years since the founding of New China. We strive to become a better version of ourselves. We do not want to threaten, challenge, or replace anyone. As China grows stronger, it will make greater contribution to international security and world peace. Second, to promote common development, we should engage in win-win cooperation rather than indulging in the game of I win, you lose. I know many of you might be concerned about the impact of the epidemic in China's economy. I want to stress that any negative impact is short-term and temporary. This is because China's economy is highly resilient. Its immune system is robust. The fundamentals that sustain long-term growth has not changed and will not change. At the same time, the momentum of economic globalization cannot be reversed. Countries have become so interdependent economically that it is impossible to divide the vast ocean of global economy into ponds and puddles. In face of the difficulties and challenges, it is all the more important that we deepen cooperation through opening up and promote development through cooperation. The clamors for decoupling and scientific and technological blockade against China would only land the advocate in self-imposed isolation, restriction, and backpedaling. Opening up has been the most salient signature of China since this policy was adopted more than 40 years ago. Going forward, China will continue to open its market wider to the world. With China's foreign investment law going into effect on January 1st, foreign businesses will have a greater access to Chinese market, more opportunities for closer cooperation with their Chinese partners. It is our hope that countries of the world will all remain committed to open cooperation and foster a fair, open, and non-discriminatory environment for Chinese companies, including but not limited to Huawei. Third, we probably talk about Huawei in a moment. I think Jim has a question for me in detail. Third, to safeguard international order, we should uphold multilateralism and oppose unilateralism. China is the biggest developing country in the world. It is one of the founding members of the United Nations and was the first country to put its signature on the UN Charter. China upholds the international systems with the UN at its core, champions the norms governing state-to-state relations based on international law, and defends the multilateral system with the WTO as its cornerstone. As a staunch supporter of multilateralism, China's action is a world of difference from the trumpeter of unilateralism who has withdrawn from a number of international organizations and treaties. The outbreak of COVID-19 reminds us once again that upholding multilateralism, improving global governance, and enhancing international coordination are order of the day. Going it alone or following a beggar-thy-neighbor policy saves no one from trouble. Instead, such approach would only undermine the interests of both oneself and the rest of the world. In the battle against COVID-19, China has acted in the spirit of a community with a shared future. We've been open and transparent. We've supported the leadership of WHO, stood shoulder to shoulder with the international community, and made a positive contribution to improving global governance in public health. Fourth, to advance the civilization of mankind, we should respect and learn from each other rather than boosting arrogance and building walls. I've been a diplomat for 46 years, having worked in Africa, North America, Asia, and Europe. All these years, I've been deeply impressed by rich variety of cultures and civilizations of different countries. Each civilization has its unique strength. It is the differences and diversity of the civilizations that make our world a colorful place. As President Xi Jinping said, civilizations have become richer and more colorful with exchanges and mutual learning. Such exchanges and mutual learning form an important drive for human progress and global peace and development. In recent days, however, some people once again resort to the cliché of a clash of civilizations and made irresponsible remarks on China's response to COVID-19 and development models. This not only reflects their arrogance and prejudice, but also betrayed their ignorance. From repeated lessons of history and from our own experience, we have found it too well and too obvious that to address the common challenges to mankind, we should draw upon the wisdom and absorb nutrients of different civilizations. The secret of continuity of Chinese civilization, which has gone uninterrupted for more than 5,000 years, lies in our inclusiveness and our pursuit for harmonious coexistence with other civilizations. In responding to public health crisis, the system of a socialism with the Chinese characteristic is showing strength in uniting all sectors and pooling all resources. Going forward, will continue to modernize China's system and governance capability, improve the system and mechanism for major epidemics response, and strengthens national public health emergency management system. We're also willing to learn from other countries' experience in safeguarding public health. We advocate respect for diversity of civilizations. The world does not need a line drawn between the East and the West, and should bridge the gap between the South and the North. The cliché of clash of civilizations and accents of racial discriminations are out of tune with our times. All the countries of the world should cherish our common home on earth and take concrete actions to contribute to building a community with a shared future for mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, the year 2020 is a milestone in China's development. This year, we achieved the first centenary goal, namely to complete the building of a moderately prosperous society and eliminate absolute poverty across China. In May, China will host the second United Nations Global Sustainable Transport Conference in Beijing to promote the building of global partnership for connectivity. In November, China will host the third CIIE, China International Import Expo, to share with the world the benefits of China's development. This year marks the 45th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and the EU. The two sides will hold a number of important events, including the Summit of China and Central and Eastern European countries, and work together to take China-EU relationship to the next level. This year also marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. China will continue to engage deeply in global governance and contribute China's wisdom and strength to the settlement of global issues. Later this year, China will host COP15 to the Convention of Biological Diversity, and the UK will host the COP26 to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. These two conferences will provide invaluable opportunities and important platforms for closer cooperation between China and the UK in climate change, environmental protection, and wildlife conservation. The year 2020 also marks the 5th anniversary of China-UK Golden Era, launched by President Xi Jinping's state visit to the UK in 2015. A few days ago, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Johnson had a telephone conversation. This conversation charted the course for the development of China-UK relations. China and the UK are natural partners in building a community with a shared future for mankind. Both are permanent members of UN Security Council, both champion multilateralism and support free trade, and both are great civilizations and regard as their mission to promote the world peace and development. It is important that the two countries take up more responsibilities and make more efforts in building a community with a shared future for mankind. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese word, I do not know how many of you speak Chinese, but I'll share with you Chinese wisdom and philosophy. The Chinese word for crisis reflects the wisdom and the philosophical thinking of Chinese people. It is a combination of two words. Crisis and opportunities. Chinese people always believe there are opportunities in crisis, and we always try our best to turn crisis into opportunities. Earlier this month, when I was on BBC Andrew Ma show, I asked Mr. Ma, if he speaks Chinese, he answered, I speak no Chinese, Ambassador. I think you can notice that. And I explained to him the Chinese word crisis, and he listened attentively. I was not trying to teach him Chinese language. I was using the word to explain the philosophy of Chinese people. Winston Churchill once said, difficulties mastered are opportunities won. Winston Churchill is a great master of language, though I don't think he speaks any Chinese. But his words certainly show that there are many similarities between Chinese and Western civilizations. We should keep these wise words in mind. Let's have more confidence in our capability to overcome difficulties and work together to turn crises into opportunities. Together, we can ensure the steady and sustained development of China-UK golden era. Together, we can promote the building of a community for shared future for mankind. Together, we can make our world a better place with lasting peace and common prosperity. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, for that. Let me start with a few questions and I'll come to the audience. The central theme that you've kept bringing up and finished with is this community of a shared future. Let me start with COVID-19. And do you feel along the lines of other issues you were raising about concerns that so far this outbreak has taken us more to the world where we're pulling away from each other, or in a strange way, despite the dreadful nature of it, this might be something that brings us all back together?
I think in my remarks you can see that I believe this virus put the world together. The virus, as I said, knows no borders, knows no races. Either you are Chinese, British, Americans, and this virus constitutes the common threat, common challenges. So we need to work together to fight against this. We always believe China is not fighting this virus alone. China engaged with, though we have made every effort to contain it in China, but also we engage very actively with the international community, and we appreciate the support from other countries, including UK, including United States, and other European countries. UK government sent 2 shipments of medical supplies, which is urgently needed. And we also help the UK government to expatriate its nationals. We're also taking good care of foreigners living in Wuhan, in Hubei. We are working actively with the WHO. They sent experts group in China, and they produce a very convincing report, not only about the efforts made by China, but also how the world can work together, to cure this disease. And China adopt a very open, transparent approach. We share information, including genetic sequence, including the origins of the disease, including the successful cases. Right now, there are about 40,000 people cured, discharged from hospitals. I think the rate is 56% of cured out of about 80,000 confirmed cases. So I think this virus really, as I said, convinces us once again that the human society, we are of the one community. We have a shared future. We should work together for a better future of mankind.
Perhaps I'll risk one of my first, luckily I won't be asking many, slightly risky questions. When you
No risk question.
when you read and hear people outside of China saying that we can't trust any of the numbers or any of the data, is that just really annoying for you, or do you?
Some media, I think the majority of people, including the foreign government, including WHO, they trust in the figures. And if you don't trust the figures, how could you explain that virus has been contained? So we are making progress. We have a convincing figures that we are making progress.
Certainly the Purchasing Managers Index published this morning would raise questions to those that doubt Chinese data, because as I'm sure, or yesterday, it was very weak. Anyhow,
there's always a suspicion. So that's why we encourage...
I remember from the days of the Asian crisis.
Yeah, we encourage communications. We encourage more transparency. We invite foreign experts coming to China. I think if you don't trust us, do you trust WHO expert? If you don't trust WHO expert, whom do you trust? You trust yourself? You trust Western media? You trust rumors, scaremongers statement? You know, you need to trust. You know, we need to build trust. Then we can have a confidence. We can have optimism for winning this battle. It's very important.
I love how you said or brought up the lesson of or the example of Andrew Marr and the word crisis. I had never realised that myself. One of the few things I think I learned in nearly 40 years of finance is never let a crisis go to waste. And my question for you in that regard is, what is the big opportunity, therefore, for China from this crisis, do you think?
Many. And I think the big opportunity shows that China is a responsible global player. If you don't trust me, I quote WHO Director General words, China is not only protecting its own people, but also protecting the people of the world. You know, we made huge sacrifice. We have bought the time for the rest of the world. I think Matt Hancock, you know, in his interview, praised China. Prime Minister also, they all praised China for the speed of the response, for the resolution, determination by the Chinese government. And so I think this really shows China is a responsible global player. It also shows the strength of China's system. You know, though I'm not trying to export China's model, I believe each civilization has its strength, uniqueness. We should learn from each other. And this really shows that China's system can deliver. You know, we built 2 hospitals in 10 days. And now I just read the report. The current situation is we have more beds. You know, people are concerned about this enough capability to hospitalize the patient. Now it's the beds waiting for patients. It's not the patients waiting for beds.
Hopefully it stays that way.
I hope so. Yeah. Certainly. And so it really shows the strength of this, what we call the system of Chinese characteristics. Not people quite understand it. Some people say it maybe take years for some country to build the 2 hospitals.
I wonder where.
I wouldn't name countries. When I was at the symposium some other day, I said, I've been here for 10 years. I'm hearing this debate about the 3rd runway of Heathrow Airport. Yet in the past 5 years, it took China 5 years to build the largest terminal in the world, the new international airport in Beijing.
Let me, given that
with 4 runways.
I'm going to jump.
Not 1.
Incredible. I'm going to jump around very quickly for a couple of other things that I'm going to come to the audience. Obviously, I could spend all afternoon just chatting with you. The China-US. Do you sometimes, do you feel that as China develops towards its ambition, this period of, let's call it, interesting challenges between China and the US was inevitable, or you just sort of go to bed and think, how on earth did this happen? Which way are you on that one?
You know, as I said in my remarks, you know, we just want to make a best version of ourselves. We still regard and we are still the largest developing country in the world. There's enormous challenges facing the Chinese leadership, Chinese government, how to make China a better country, how to make Chinese people feel happier, living longer, you know, enjoying a better life. That is enormous challenges. And after my posting in Egypt as ambassador, I was seconded to a Gansu province. Gansu is not far from Hubei. It's a very poor, very dry, and one of the poorest provinces. I was seconded there as an assistant governor to help the province to open up. That was about 15 years ago. I do not know how many provinces you've been to.
Not as many as most people presume.
You can say it's a very very underdeveloped. The people, you know, especially in the mountain areas. At that time, there's only 18 kilometers of highway, but 15 years have brought a lot of changes. And people do not even have a drinkable water, many population. They have to build the cellar to catch the rainwater, then to purify it.
15 years ago?
That was 15 years ago. And the children do not have access to quality education, I would say. You know, the life is very hard there. And it's just one province. And there are many on the western part of China. So that's why the government invests a great deal, the central government, to help the Western. Americans have this Wild West in the old days, and I think ours is more similar. You can call it Wild West. It's making tremendous progress, but still way behind the coast area. So these days, when people talk about China, many of them have the image of Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangdong. But they are not representative of China. They represent the developed part of China. But we also have a very large area of developing China. So I think that's enormous challenges for the Chinese government, how to build China into a prosperous, we call it a moderately prosperous society by this year. So, you know, this is we have a reform opening up in the past 40 years that changed the landscape of China. One of the secret of success is we engage with the rest of the world. We open up, and including improved relation with United States. I've been posted twice in Washington, D.C. In that days, I always say there's no peace, stability, prosperity of the world without better relation between China and United States. So we have no intention at all to challenge the United States, to even replace the United States. Even when China surpassed the United States in terms of GDP, some people predict, I do not know what is your prediction, by
I don't do that anymore.
By 2030. But per capita GDP, China is way behind. Last year, China's per capita GDP is just surpassed $10,000 US. That is just 1/6 of the United States and 1/4 of UK.
Let me ask you one more before I come to the audience. The golden relationship between China and the UK, how golden is it these days? And would it have been very ungolden if the decision on Huawei would have gone differently?
You know, Huawei is just a part of the relationship. It's not all. I think China enjoying a very good, robust relationship. It's a cross-border, it's a comprehensive relation. We call it a comprehensive strategic relationship between China and UK. As I said, we are both members of permanent members in Security Council, carry bigger responsibility for global affairs, including the one you remember we both appeared in this antibiotics.
Yes.
And that is also an area, China and UK can work together, can take the lead. And I talk about COP15, COP26. That's offer us opportunities, not only for, strengthening bilateral collaboration. I think China and UK can provide leadership to the world in terms of addressing challenges of climate change, environment protection, wildlife conservation. On business, I think now China moved, according to some figures, is the third trading partner for United Kingdom. I think when UK leave EU, the relationship between China and UK will become even more important, especially when UK is building global Britain. I believe there are more opportunities between China and UK in building golden. So I think the golden era is still shining. I always say we should work together to produce more golden fruits to this golden era.
Okay, let me come to the audience. Please raise your hands, and if you start asking if you give a statement or ask a very long question, I'm going to cut you off because we only have just over 15 minutes. There's a lady right in the corner. I'll start with you. I'll take 3 and then say where you're from.
Thank you, Ambassador. My name is Jun Yan from Chatham House. Also, I'm Chinese from Gansu province, you just mentioned. I have a question.
Coincidence.
Indeed. So I have a question about when you were talking about the crisis and changing the crisis into an opportunity. What do you see would be the opportunity for the development of public health care in China after this COVID virus? And also, what do you see the opportunity of the public engagement, or let's say the participation of society in public affairs after this crisis? Thank you.
I saw somebody over this side, this gentleman in the middle on the right. There's a lot of hands up.
Thank you very much. My name's Duncan Bartlett from Asian Affairs magazine. Ambassador, my question relates to issues such as Hinkley Point and HS2 high-speed rail link. Should Britain give China a greater role in developing infrastructure in the United Kingdom?
And then the third one for now, I'll come over to somebody from the media. If you can be brief, then we'll take those 3, Ambassador, and then come back for another round.
Ambassador, my name is Latika Burke. I'm from the Sydney Morning Herald. You said that China had been open and transparent in its response to COVID-19. Why then did China reprimand the whistleblower doctor who tried to alert you to this new virus? And how is that a demonstration to the rest of the world of the socialist regime you praised?
There you go.
What is your last point? What regime?
How is that a demonstration of the Chinese regime you praised earlier in your speech?
Okay. It's not I praised, it's a WHO. They said China set the standard. It's an international praising of China.
Maybe that's the answer
to this I have to be very careful. I don't want to be self-boasting, if you follow me closely. On the public role, I think there's of course, we have, as I mentioned about the strength of the system, but also we have to realize, and President said on several occasions, there's a shortcomings that we need to work for. This is how to make the system is more responsive to crisis. When we say that China has, the whole nation has been mobilized to fight what call it the people's war. As a matter of fact, we've seen so many stories, not only the medical healthcare workers fighting in the forefront, but also ordinary people, so many volunteers. The people have been mobilized, organized by the community. So many volunteers. Wuhan is a city about 5 times of London. Population is about 11 million, and Hubei is 59 million. It's a population of England plus Wales. So people focus on the medical team working, fighting the birds, but people need to have their daily life guaranteed. And the whole country, sent their basic needs, food. I read the reports, everywhere, including Gansu, ship the apples. Gansu is very good to produce the delicious apples. They donate the apples. So I think there's a great participation of the public, including the ordinary people, students, pupils. So I think there's a lessons for us to learn how to strengthen the public health emergency management system to make it more responsive, and also how to work with international organizations, WHO. I think there's also lessons to learn for WHO. So we would like to share this experience with the international community, not only the successful cured case, but also how to set up a more effective system. And also this crisis, it's a wake-up call for the world, for international community, that we need to invest more on public health and how to do a better job. So that is also a lesson for not only Chinese government, but also for the world as a whole. With regard to infrastructure, we have had a lot of collaborations, between China and UK. China has advantage, has capital experience, and UK has its also expertise in finance. I think our two countries can work together on many of these projects. You mentioned about Hinkley Point C. The good news, it's on track, making solid progress. It's a joint venture between China, France, and UK. The Chinese companies are very much committed to deliver the best quality of this project. With regard to the high-speed rail, China now is the leader in high-speed rail. We owned 2/3 of the world high-speed railway. If you traveled in China on high-speed rail and compare your experience in China and in UK, you will tell the difference. And we are open, but I just take this opportunity to clear up things. It had been reported by FT. I'm not trying to criticize FT. I do not know if there's an FT journalist in the room.
Maybe.
And there's no such a news. It's a fake news. I'm not blaming them reporting it. The Chinese Railway Authority did not write letter, so-called letter, to promise that China can deliver the HSR in 5 years and with the lowest investment. I think there are some contact between Chinese railway companies and their British counterpart, but no substantial discussions yet. We are open. We would like to participate, and so it's up to the British government. I think it's a win-win collaboration. On the transparent, I think China have done, have made efforts to make this transparent. There's no such a thing that China cracked down on the people who gave away information. I think you are talking about Li Wenliang's doctor's case. First, I would say this virus is really it's a novel. People do not know enough about it. Even today, people do not know enough. Well, if we know it well, we would know how to kill this, how to, cure the people. So from the very beginning, I think the local, it's mainly according to the report, it's a local government. They become somewhat nervous when they face this new virus. So, you know, it takes time for people to realize the seriousness of the virus. But I just read the report that Li Wenliang was not the first doctor to discover this virus. There's a doctor called Zhang, what is his name? Dr. Zhang. Then he discovered it, and he reported immediately to the health authority. Then the health authority report very straightforward to the even higher authority. And this doctor was praised in China. And Li, I think he won the other channel, he did it on the social media, not through the official channel, but we do not blame him. I think he is regarded as a hero. Even at a very difficult time, he lived up to his duty. But this thing is very sad, and he passed away, and he will be remembered as a hero in this fight against the virus. And the central authority have sent investigation team down to Wuhan to find out what really happened to Li. So there's no such a thing of cover up, and we try very best to be transparent, to be open, and to be responsible.
Let's try another. I'm sorry in advance, we were losing time. There's a gentleman there with the glasses on in the middle, that's looking behind him. The one that's looking, you first, the lady at the back, and this gentleman in the middle on this side. We'll take you three and then see how we're doing. If you could be brief,
Thank
please.
you, Your Excellency. Institute of Dependent Affairs. You talked about lots about the spirit of community, creation of shared interest, harmonious existence with civilizations. I wonder, how do you treat the Tibetans in Tibet, Uyghurs in the Xinjiang states? Don't you think the foreign policy and the treatment of your own citizens, as it were, should come first?
Okay, we got that
this
question. Lady at the back.
I'm Dr. Karabet. I'm a member of Chatham House, and I used to study in China in the 1980s. Now I have a very direct and quick question. What is the Chinese government planning to do with the illegal trade of wild animals? I do remember markets in China in the 1980s that obviously did have problems. So what is the way forward?
Okay, and then this gentleman in the middle here.
Thank you very much. Ewan Grant, Chatham House member and former taxman who's worked in Africa and Central Asia in Belt and Road countries. My question is slightly different regarding to new news, though not surprising news. The British government is going to provide significant support to France and the UN in the Sahel by sending a significant number of troops to the UN mission in Mali. Chinese troops have been in that mission for some time. Some of them have died in the mission, been killed. Where do you see the role for bilateral and multilateral cooperation coming out of that mission, particularly but not exclusively against jihadism? Thank you.
Thank you. Three very different questions. Nice easy ones.
No, I go one by one. On Xinjiang and Tibet, I think you have, I should correct you. Tibet and Xinjiang are part of China. There's no such a thing of independence of Tibet. I do not know where you got such an impression. It's a part of China since ancient times, and the people, the different ethnic groups in Tibet and Xinjiang living peacefully, harmoniously, enjoying a happy life. And you know, China is a country of 56 ethnic groups. and they live in harmony, united, stand together, including this anti-virus. The Tibetan people provide a very valuable aid to Wuhan, Hubei. Hubei also, in China, we have sister provinces that Hubei is helping Tibet in the past. So the Tibetan people want to show their gratitude, and they provide food, vegetables, supplies. Xinjiang did the same. And so I think China is a united country. Different ethnic groups enjoy, harmonious, live peacefully, work together to build the country. On the wildlife, I don't know if you notice that recently the National People's Congress, that is the equivalent of a British Parliament, passed the regulations, and I think it won't be long that because the Parliament, the Congress is not in session, only the Standing Committee is now operating, it will become a law that to ban the illegal trade of wildlife animals, and also banning this unhealthy, what we call it, eliminating an unhealthy habit of eating wildlife. So the government is a very, some people ask about the lessons from this COVID-19. This is one of the lessons that, but to change people's habit, it might take time. But the central authorities, including the government and Congress, are very determined to take measures to, correct this unhealthy habit. On the peacekeeping mission, I think, I don't know how familiar you are with the peacekeeping. China is the second largest contributor to UN peacekeeping budget, and China is the largest contributor in terms of peacekeeping personnel among the permanent members of the UN Security Council. We are very committed to UN peacekeeping mission, and we do have some collaboration with some countries like UK. As a matter of fact, I think a few years ago, maybe last year, I need to double check my memory, that China military and the UK military have a joint exercise on how to evacuating civilians at the combat zone. So we are open. We first, I would say, will continue to make contributions to UN peacekeeping mission. As you said, I think 66 of the peacekeepers laid down their lives for this noble mission. And we are also open in terms of working together with other countries.
It's 2 o'clock, Ambassador. Shall we take a couple more, or do you have to?
Up to you.
Your scheduled tight.
You are the host. I'm the guest.
I'm looking
I follow
at your
host
colleague.
advice.
Okay. I'm going to risk getting myself unpopular here. I'll take 2 more. There's a lady over there in the corner. And is there anybody of these guys near the door? Nobody wants to ask anything from there. I'll take another lady here. That's my last 2 questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your talk. My question, I'm a student at SOAS, by the way. My question is about Taiwan. You said that you want to work with other countries to fight the virus, but why is the Chinese government opposing the participation of Taiwan in the WHO?
Ambassador Xiaoming, I'm Jiang from Chatham House. Currently, I'm leading a project of UK-China Climate Risk Assessment Program. So back to the question about the golden era. I'm very interested to hear your point of view of what kind of the golden year in terms of the climate change cooperation between China and the UK. Thank you.
Taiwan WHO, you know, there's a, you need to make distinction about, collaboration and the country state. WHO is an organization that only state can have a representative. You know, it's an international organization of a government. It's an intergovernmental organization. So Taiwan, because it's not state, have a statehood, it's a part of China. When British government established diplomatic relations with China in 1972, normal relations, UK government recognized Taiwan as a province of China. Taiwan is part of China. It has not been embraced, returned to China. You know, it is still a legacy of the Civil War in 1949. So it's still very much in the DNA of Chinese nation to realize the final reunification of the country. So China is now still divided. You know, I don't know how many of you realize that. So we haven't realized this goal, but we still cherish this goal to get a final realization, reunification of the country. But we are working for peaceful reunification, just like Hong Kong's return to China 22 years ago. We also proposed a formula, one country, two systems to Taiwan. As a matter of fact, Deng Xiaoping first proposed this one country, two systems formula for solution of Taiwan reunification with the mainland. But of course, then Hong Kong, you know, development more quickly. So this formula applied to Hong Kong, Macau. But we still believe that, believe in this one country, two systems. But that does not prevent China from engaging with the people in Taiwan. In fact, we care more about the well-being of the people in Taiwan. So on the very first day, we share information with the Taiwan people about the virus, and we invite Taiwan experts, doctors, come to mainland, you know, to discuss with them, to discuss with us, and share information. We facilitate all the information communication. So there's no barriers, obstacles in terms of collaboration of the medical people across the street. The important thing is some people try to take advantage of the virus to politicize this. They want to elevate Taiwan's status. So that is something we totally disagree. We reject, you know, Taiwan should not have official recognition, participation in WHO, but that should not prevent Taiwan's participation in experts, you know, discussions, working together, workshops.
Question about
the
golden era on climate change.
We call it the golden era, not a golden year. So it's longer than 1 year. And I think, as I said, the COP15, COP26 provide a golden opportunity, if you may, for China and the United Kingdom to work together on this important agenda of climate change. Though the two conferences have it's a different mandate, the first one, the one which is going to be held by China, is more focused on you know, biological, wild animal conservation, environment. The COP26 is more focused on climate change, but there's a linkage between the two. I think when Prime Minister Johnson launched 26, he mentioned that UK support China to host COP15, and he also believed, you know, there's a strong linkage between the two conferences. We believe in this linkage. We believe China, UK should work together, should support each other to make the two conferences a big success. And I think these two conferences will be two of the golden fruits in the golden era.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your time. And thank you, everyone.